Hey, I'm Roland with Mobile Geeks, and this is our review of the Lenovo Tab S8. So the S8 is Lenovo's first tablet running on an Intel SoC and with Android. They have already a bunch of Windows-based tablets running the same SoC because this is the Intel Atom Z3745D. So that's a quad-core x86 running at 1.33 gigahertz, going up to 1.86 gigahertz on its turbo. It is an 8-inch tablet. It is launching for just under 200 euros. It's 199 euros in Germany, and it is also available in a version with an LTE modem, which we have right here, that will cost you 249 euros. I guess the US prices will be pretty much the same if this device ever makes it to the US. And so it's a pretty cheap tablet, but it has a lot to offer because what we have right here is an 8-inch panel on the front. That's an IPS screen. Running at a resolution of 1920 by 1200 in a 16 by 10 form factor. So definitely a full HD screen on here. The whole thing is just under 8 millimeters thick. It's actually 7.9 millimeters thick, and it weighs in at just 299 grams in the Wi-Fi version. This LTE model right here comes in at 307 grams. It's definitely a very well made device. We have 2 gigs of RAM in here, and there's 16 gigs of flash storage. You can extend the storage through this micro SD card slot that's over here on the left. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Spec-wise, we have Wi-Fi in here, there's Bluetooth in here. I don't think there is a GPS module in here. And another thing that's kind of odd, but it's also happening on a bunch of other Intel-based devices, is that you have to live without a brightness sensor, but I'll show you that later on. There are no capacitive touch buttons on here, so Intel and Lenovo are going the way of the onboard on-screen touch buttons. As you can see down here, there are 2 front-facing speakers on this device, so this offers a very good stereo sound. The edges of the screen, or the bezel, is pretty small, but they're wasting a bit of space at the bottom and the top for those speakers. We have a 1.6 megapixel camera up there on the right, and what's very interesting for a device at this price point is that this tablet has an 8 megapixel camera using a BSI sensor on the back. It's got autofocus and an LED flash, so very well equipped in the camera department right here. Let's take a quick look at the sides now. We have behind this flap is where your micro SD card will go, and in this case I have my 3G SIM card in that SIM card slot. That again, there's only going to be an LTE model and a Wi-Fi version, so you always will end up with the possibility of using an LTE compatible SIM card that will run you, give you speeds of 150, at maximum 150 megabits a second. Up here we have the headset jack. On the right, this is the power button, and the other one right here is the volume rocker. And on the bottom, you get the micro USB port and a speech mic, because you can also use this device for making phone calls. As you could see, there is no micro HDMI port on here, so you have to live without that in this case. So design-wise, the Lenovo Tab S8 is pretty attractive. They're, again, using pretty small bezels on here. What's also interesting is that this kind of reminds me of the OnePlus One, because the display looks like propped on right here. The back cover is made out of plastic. There's going to be a blue version, a yellow version, I think there's a gray version, and this white model right here that has this very nice finish. It is kind of rubberized, but only slightly, so it doesn't slip from the hand, and it also has this kind of metallic shine to it, so that looks pretty nice. I don't know if you can see that on the camera right here. Again, it's very, very thin. What's also interesting is that they make it look a bit thinner from the sides right here, but as the device will lay on the back that is a bit thicker in the middle, you won't have to worry about it resting the weight on the camera right there. We have a big Lenovo logo up there, and down here is the Intel logo, just to remind you whose chip is in here. Regarding the build quality of this device, I have to mention that this is still a pre-production sample, so it's not fully up to par on build quality, but the only part where I really noticed that is when you try to flex the device and it kind of creaks a small bit, but that's the only thing I really noticed on this. There's another fact where you will notice this in this video is because the software is not fully optimized yet. So the store down here, the Play Store, doesn't work yet, for example, because this probably hasn't been certified by Google yet, so it doesn't work. Other than that, the quality feels very nice. It's definitely one of the smallest and the most compact 8-inch tablets out on the market, and it is also very light and thin at just under 8 millimeters thickness, as I said. Now let's go on to the display. Performance-wise, the Lenovo Tab S8 does a really good job, although it's one of the cheaper tablets on the market. It is running on the Intel Atom SoC, which is the reason why it's performing so well. The device scores just over 35,000 points in Antutu. We scored just over 20,000 points in Quadrant Benchmark, as far as I remember. And in 3D Mark, you get 15,654 points, which is a pretty good value for a device at this price point. And in general, the performance seems very nice. If we just go back to the home screen here, you'll see that there's pretty much no stuttering or anything going on right here. If I switch to Google, and let's just move on to my review from the Surface Pro 3. Scrolling through websites is pretty smooth too. You just have to make sure that they've loaded fully. In this case, it's a review, so that takes a while. Now it's fully loaded, and as you can see, scrolling is very smooth and quick too. There's no stuttering going on whatsoever on the screen as far as I could tell, apart from a bunch of bugs that are still left in this pre-production build of Android 4.4.2 running on here. When playing games on the Lenovo Tab S8, you'll notice that the performance is pretty much decent. There is not really any points where this device is not able to keep up, but I guess there's a bunch of games that have super high resolution textures and other stuff going on where the Intel integrated graphics part on this device might not be fully up to par, but that's to be expected. But other than that, in gaming, it is really a nice performing device, and everything also looks very nice because the screen has such a high resolution. I didn't notice any stutterings while playing games or using the interface so far. That's probably going to be even more optimized when this device comes to market in a bunch of months. It's probably going to be out before the Christmas period. So as you can see here, there's no stutter going on, and I've already set this to the highest graphics settings in Rear Racing 3. So overall, the performance on the Lenovo Tab S8 is really good, at least for a device that is retailing for under 200 euros or US dollars. And as you can see in this chart, it is doing a very good job at this price point, especially when you compare to the devices running, for example, all-winner SoCs or Rockchip SoCs that are normally the ones that are placed in those low-end tablets. The camera on the Lenovo Tab S8 is definitely one of the better cameras that I've seen so far in tablets, especially concerning, again, the price that is just under 200 US dollars. This is an 8 megapixel camera using a BSI sensor, and it also has an LED flash. It performs pretty well. You'll see that it is also capable of doing 1080p Full HD video. There's going to be a sample in this video too. And what's also pretty interesting is that it has a very reduced camera interface. The autofocus tends to be a bit slow, so if you see that I move it from the background to the foreground and back again, it might take a little while to focus, but it definitely does a good job, and it mostly hits the focus point very, very quickly. Shooting pictures could, from time to time, take a bit of time, because if you hit the button, it might give a bit of a lag right here, but I don't know if that might just be a thing that is going on in this pre-release build of the Android version that is going to be on this device when it goes to retail. The photo quality overall is very, very decent. At least when you have good lighting situations, it will definitely give you pretty good pictures. You can check the article, our review on mobilegeeks.com and .de for that. And I might even put a bunch of pictures in here. Other than that, The performance in low light is, again, as on any other smartphone or tablet camera, not going to be the best, but it's been doing a pretty good job. And overall, the camera on the Lenovo Tab S8 is definitely one of the best cameras that I've so far seen on a tablet. The interface is very, very reduced. You only have these controls up here, and they show up in the middle of the screen, and then you have a bunch of options. You can set the HDR mode, you can play around with the white balance, you can also set the lighting conditions, turn off the flash, turn on the flash. There's a panoramic mode, but in this case the resolution drops to just 1536 by 564 pixels or something like that. So panorama photos are not going to be the best in this case. But overall, again, the quality of the camera of the Lenovo Tab S8 is definitely another good point for this device. As I said, Lenovo has integrated two speakers on this device, and they're situated on the front, so they're blasting towards the user, which is always a great point when considering buying a tablet. What you have to remember, though, is when playing games, you might end up covering the speakers with your hands, but in this case, as you can see, you're pretty much free to roam over there without covering the speakers when you just consider that they're there, and you'll probably notice when you can't hear the sound anymore, right? And let's just give you a quick impression of what the quality is like. So I started 3D Mark on here, and I'm just going to tilt this device towards the mic a bit, and as you can hear, it is a very nice sound. It's pretty clear, and there's even a tiny touch of bass in there, so it's definitely one of the loudest and one of the best sounding tablets I've had so far. And now let's just take a quick listen. The Lenovo Tab S8 is running Android 4.4.2 KitKat, so I can show you that and just quickly switch to the settings menu right here. Let's go down to About the Tablet, and there you go. It says Android 4.4.2 up there. And as you can also see, the design has kind of been inspired by another major smartphone manufacturer or tablet manufacturer. This maybe reminds you of Apple's iOS, and if you go to the front, you'll also see that most of the icons and the background kind of look bits like on the Apple devices, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. There is no app drawer on this device, so there's no chance you can hit this grid button down here and just switch to the app drawer. So all the apps are placed on a bunch of home screens. There's also widgets and stuff. Lenovo has its own widgets, for example, a media player and a weather widget and a bunch of others. And if you hold the device right here, you'll see that down there goes the widget menu. The whole interface is slightly or pretty heavily modified actually compared to a standard Android version, and it's definitely looking very nice. I mean, I like the fonts. They're very crisp and they're good to read on the screen. You'll see that the scaling has been modified a bit to make things look very small and yeah, maybe even a bit fragile. So if you look up here and look at the status bar right there with the icons and the clock, you'll see that it is compared to the rest of the content on the screen. It's very small. And I actually like that kind of design because it makes use of the high resolution and the good capabilities of this panel. And you always are able to stuff a lot of content in here. So yeah, I like the software on the Lenovo Tab S8. There's one thing I have to remember to tell you is that this, again, is a pre-production model, so it hasn't even been certified for the Google Play Store, but it's already on here in this version, and it will definitely work when it comes to market. On this device, it didn't. and I had to use an alternative market, which in this case was the One Mobile market. You will get a bunch of small modifications to the interface on this device. So if I swipe down here on any home screen, you'll see that up comes this notification bar that we know from all other Android versions, so you don't always have to reach up here. If you do that on the right, there would be the quick settings menu where you can set stuff like the brightness. And here's the point again, you have to always set the brightness manually because this device doesn't have a brightness sensor on the front. Depends if you are really dependent on this feature, but in this case you will have to take care of modifying the brightness yourself. There's also a bunch of other settings in here. For example, the speakers are also Dolby certified. You will be able to set a bunch of different settings in this special app, and there's also a bunch of Lenovo's own apps pre-installed, which are, for example, this Security HD, which I don't really like because I would love to choose the security solution on my tablet myself, or maybe even leave it turned off, but I can't uninstall this. You can only deactivate it as far as I know. There is a Sync It HD app in here that helps you synchronize stuff with other devices. There's Clone It, so that's maybe, or that's not even maybe, but it's definitely a broadcasting solution, so you can blast the stuff from the device to a I think Miracast or Wi-Fi Direct compatible receiver and connect this device to a TV. There's a sharing app. There's a bunch of other apps in here that are made by Lenovo themselves and that are definitely a nice addition. You have a file browser down here that also not only looks nice, but it also works very nice, so definitely does a good job for the basic stuff you need to do on these devices. There is pretty much no bloatware on here. I didn't really find anything that I found annoying. There's a bunch of apps pre-installed that I don't know if they're going to be in the final version of this device, that are the game store right here, that is just a basic and quick way to access some games. There's this streaming service down here for music that's probably not going to be on all devices depending on where you live in the world. And yeah, that's pretty much it. What's also very nice and interesting is that this can also be used for making phone calls, so it has full GSM capabilities, and you will definitely be able to make calls with this because this is using the Intel XMM 7160 LTE modem. The Lenovo Tab S8 has a 4290 milliamp hour battery in here, so this is supposed to give you a runtime of just around 7 hours, which is not the highest value compared to, for example, the iPads or other Android devices that score up to 10 hours, for example. And in testing this with Laptop Mag's battery tester, cheers goes out to our friends at Laptop Mag, we were able to score 7 hours and 10 minutes. So what the software does is basically cycling through a ton of web pages constantly, having the brightness set to 70%. We got just over 7 hours, but you have to remember that I turned off the 4G modem to do those tests, just surfing through Wi-Fi. And if I turn on the modem and it is booked onto the network here in Germany, maybe that's because of where I live and the reception isn't the best, we scored just 6 hours and 30 minutes of the same testing. And in everyday use, I actually managed it to work through the day pretty well. So shouldn't be any problems. I had like 3 to 4 hours of web surfing going on, so using the screen all the time, playing games and surfing the web through LTE and Wi-Fi. So I managed to easily get through the day with this device. So if you're asking yourself if the Lenovo Tab S8 could be for you, my answer would be, yeah, I guess it could be, because this device has a lot to offer for a very low price. It's just under 200 euros. I guess the US price is going to be just under 200 US dollars, and it will be dropping in price since there's a bunch of competition going on in the market. So this should be available for 180 euros, for example, for the Wi-Fi version. Again, 250 for the LTE model is very nice, considering the fact that you can get download speeds of up to 150 megabits a second. It has one of the best screens that I've seen so far on tablets. The blacks are just amazing. It also has a very good contrast. Color reproduction is nice. Viewing angles are very decent. Build quality will be probably all right when it comes to market. It is very thin and very light, just under 300 grams and 7.9 millimeters in thickness. I like the speakers that are on the front of the device, so these are definitely giving you one of the best experiences that I've had considering the sound on a tablet. The camera is another thing that is really great on this device, since an 8 megapixel shooter with an autofocus and an LED flash is not that common in the price point of just under 200 euros. And yeah, overall, the only thing that I can really gripe about is the battery life. So it could be a bit longer, but 7 hours should be enough for most cases, considering the fact that in this case, the screen was turned on at 70% all the time. So in everyday life, you should easily be able to make it through the day with this device. So that's been my review of the Lenovo Tab S8, and I was rolling with Mobile Geeks. And if you like what we do on our channels, like the review for example, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Google+, and we'll see you later. Bye.